So I think everybody has a handout. If you don't have the handouts, I'm going to leave them on the table here. Pick one up. And my goal for tonight is to talk about the foods that you should be eating. One of the problems with, quote, dieting, or what most people think of as nutrition, is that it's all about limiting yourself, about foods that you can't eat. And I'm going to point out a few things that I think you should avoid tonight and talk about some of the pitfalls that you fall into. But my big goal for tonight is to really talk about all the whole, real foods that you should be trying to get in your diet. And I would strongly encourage you, if you're somebody that's trying to improve your nutrition, to think a lot more about adding the good foods as opposed to limiting the bad ones. And many times what happens is that if you eat the good foods, over time you gradually lose the addictions or the cravings, yes, for the bad foods or for the foods that wouldn't be as healthy for you. Okay, so we're actually going to move through the store, and I'm going to try to keep this to about an hour, so I'm going to move through kind of quickly. All right. Like I said, my emphasis is going to be on what I call real foods. Unfortunately, many of the foods that Americans eat are really food-like chemical products. Okay, so we're going to spend a lot of time in the produce department. We're going to spend some time looking at some frozen foods. Spend some time looking at nuts and seeds and oils and healthy things. Okay, so many of the reasons people don't eat healthy, honestly, are really just excuses. But one of the things that really is valid is that to eat real food does usually take a little bit more time. It takes more preparation time usually to cook and prepare real foods. One of the superfoods that you have on your list is broccoli. Broccoli, actually, research shows that broccoli can reduce your risks of many types of cancer, especially lung cancer, stomach cancer, colon cancer, by as much as 50%. Okay, so how many of you would like to reduce your risk of cancer by 50%? Okay, so the research showed that eating 2 servings of broccoli a day can lower your cancer risk by 50%. It also contains a really interesting chemical called sulforaphane, and that's why not only broccoli but cruciferous vegetables like Brussels sprouts and cauliflower have that sulfur-like smell about them. And sulforaphane is very healthy for everything from your skin to your immune system. Go ahead.
What's considered a serving?
Honestly, I don't know. I would have to look it up.
All right.
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
A general thing with broccoli is that really you can't overdo it. You're not going to add excess calories by eating too much. As a matter of fact, a little note that I tell people is if you're trying to eat, again, add good things, is that 1 cup of broccoli has about the same amount of calories as 12 cups of cooked pasta, even if you're looking at whole wheat pasta. So I'm a pretty good eater, but I could not sit down and eat 12 cups of pasta, but I could, easily eat, I could never sit down and eat 12 cups of broccoli, but I think I mixed it up. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, there's a lot fewer calories in broccoli than there are in pasta. All right. So, but the reason I pointed out this particular product is that it's not organic, so that might not be the best choice. But one of the great things about this is for convenience. I started off by saying that it can be harder and take more time to consume whole foods, real foods. This broccoli slaw is a great fast addition that can increase the health benefits of your diet. So in our family, we will sometimes use this with just salad dressing over it on a salad. You could add a handful of it on top of another type of greens that you use for salad to up the fiber content and get the broccoli in it. You also can actually use it to make actual coleslaw like you would use cabbage. But it also makes a really pretty good stir fry. If you're really in a pinch and you're trying to find something quick, you can stir fry this with maybe some chicken or even if you don't use any other protein and make a vegetarian stir fry. It can be a great, easy, fast thing. Okay?
But if you make coleslaw, don't use a lot of mayonnaise.
Right, exactly. Right. I'm going to talk about salad dressings and healthy things. When you look at your plate when you're planning a meal, you really want to think about a number of things. You want to think about where's the healthy fat, where are the real foods, the fruits and vegetables, and then does it have adequate protein? Okay. Over here behind Jeff, there's a bag or a container of pumpkin seeds. Now, this wouldn't be my first choice because these are roasted and salted. But what I wanted to point out, especially for men, is that pumpkin seeds are high in zinc. Zinc is really great for your immune function, and for men it's actually been shown to be protective for prostate cancer. So zinc is something that can be difficult to get in your diet. So pumpkin seeds are really high in zinc. So you could actually eat, it would be best if they were raw, unroasted, unsalted pumpkin. But if you wanted a salty snack, this would be much, much better than potato chips or pretzels or something like that, okay? I'll talk about later when we talk about oils, that sometimes you can find a pumpkin seed oil that can be a great benefit because you get the healthy fat plus you get the zinc in it too, okay? All right, we're gonna move over to the big signs that say organic over there, buy organic. There's growing evidence that organic is better for you in two main regards, because it doesn't have the pesticides and the chemicals on it, but also because it has a higher nutritional value. Now there's some debate about this, but the idea is that in order for a food to be grown organically, they have to add back to the soil, so that because they're not allowed in organic farming to use artificial fertilizers. So a plant or an animal that eats the plants can only have as much nutrition in it as it gets from the ground, or as the animal gets from what it eats. Okay, later when we're talking about grass-fed beef, that'll be something that I'm going to mention. Okay, so I think whenever you can or you can afford to buy organic, I think organic is always going to be better. Local is even better still. If you can buy organic and local, that's ideal. And the reason is that when we look at local produce, that it not only, especially if you can find organic and local, not only do you have less pesticides and herbicides, but you also have a food that's fresh. There's some non-nutritional value to just eating food that is fresh. You know, much of the food that we might buy in the grocery store might have actually been picked or harvested weeks earlier in order so that it could be packaged and processed and then ended up in the grocery store. So, all right. One of the staples in your diet should be greens. Spinach or like a spring mix that's over here, the organic spring mix, should be something that you should try to eat an abundance of, okay? At least 1 or 2 servings of that a day. A little trick that you can do is, especially if you're trying to purposely, again, add good things to your diet, is you can make almost anything into a salad. Okay, an extreme example would be, literally you could take pizza and cut it into little pieces and put it on top of a salad, okay? For my lunch today, I actually had some leftover chili that I put over top of spinach, okay? So I would encourage you to try to eat more greens if you're not eating greens, and especially dark leafy greens. The darker or the more brightly colored a fruit or vegetable is, generally speaking, the more nutrition it has, okay? And you want to try to eat the rainbow. So when I said brightly colored, darkly colored fruits and vegetables are good, you want to actually try to eat the rainbow. So it would be ideal if your salad wasn't just greens, but it had some spinach, maybe some carrots, some broccoli, some tomatoes. You want to get oranges and reds and bright colors, okay? All right, let's move around this way. You can make your own guacamole with the avocados. Guacamole, when I talked about looking for where's the healthy fat in your diet, avocados are excellent in that they're loaded with healthy fats. So if you had to, you could buy something like this if you were in a rush, you didn't have time to make your own guacamole. But this also, if you're trying to eat more vegetables or more greens, you don't have to, again, torture yourself with just eating raw broccoli. You know, this makes a great veggie dip. Even my 7-year-old daughter will eat vegetables, carrots, and broccoli and stuff by dipping it in guacamole. So this is kind of a staple at our house. We always have guacamole, and we also always have hummus, which I'll talk about in a second, which is again can be a good, healthy way to get beneficial fats, as well as make it more fun and tasty to eat real foods. Vegetables. So behind Stan, we've got some peppers. We've got red bell peppers, yellow, orange. Again, if I was going to come shopping, it would be much healthier to get a mixture of red, orange, yellow, especially red. Actually, the red peppers have more vitamin C in them than the green peppers. So it's not that green is bad, but it would be really good to eat a diversity of those. Onions are over there. We'll talk about that. Broccoli. I use the broccoli slaw as a demonstration, but that's only just for convenience. Again, the more you can get broccoli into your diet, the better. Okay. Over here. Sure.
Are the florets just the same as the stems?
From a nutritional standpoint?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the stems are going to have more fiber. The florets actually I think have more of the sulforaphane that's the anti-cancer. So I wouldn't, a lot of people just cut off the florets and throw away the stems, but I wouldn't if I was you. I would chop it up and use it in your salads, or if you're going to cook it even, you know. And that's a good point that I didn't mention before. You don't have to eat all these foods raw, but definitely with fruits and vegetables, the closer to raw you consume them, so lightly cooked or even raw, the more nutritional value you're going to get. One of the benefits of things like raw fruits and vegetables and even things like avocados is that they also contain digestive enzymes that actually help your body to digest the food that we take in. And so when you cook them, you damage those digestive enzymes as well as you damage a lot of the, or some of the vitamins. It does not damage the minerals though, you still get all the minerals from it. So you can cook them, but it's better to cook them as little as possible. But the stems would be something that would be great to put in a stew or a soup because they're tougher, harder to eat, so they'd be a good part to cook. So I want to talk about potatoes. These are called sweet potatoes or yams, but they're actually much better for you than white potatoes. Sweet potatoes have more vitamin A, and they also have a lower glycemic index, which means they get turned into blood sugar much more slowly. So they're going to give you more sustained energy and not a sugar rush like you would get from white potatoes or from white flour kinds of foods. Okay, so if you want potatoes, I would urge you to try sweet potatoes. Okay. One of the recipes that my wife makes that my kids love is actually just bakes the sweet potatoes, and then she puts them in the KitchenAid mixer and mixes them up with unsweetened applesauce and a little bit of real maple syrup, and it makes like a mashed potato, sweet potato kind of casserole, and my kids think that it's a treat. They love them. Okay. I've highlighted mostly vegetables so far because most people naturally are drawn more to fruits because they taste sweeter. Okay, so I would encourage you to add more vegetables purposely to your diet, but fruits are very beneficial to you. Actually, the U.S. Department of Health recommends 3 to 4 servings of fruits and vegetables every single day. Okay, so like I said, if you're somebody that's trying to eat healthier or you're trying to lose weight especially, if you add all the good stuff, you honestly will not have time or the appetite to probably eat the bad stuff. Okay, so think about adding the good stuff. So again, with fruits, you want to eat the rainbow. The more brightly colored a fruit is, the more nutritional value it's going to have for you. Behind, Jeannie, can you do me a favor? Can you open that up and just the frozen blueberries and hold up a package? So my number one domestic fruit that I would urge you to eat is more blueberries. Blueberries have more antioxidants than any other domestic fruit, okay? And the reason it's great that they have frozen ones here is that this time of year, the fresh ones, again, are being shipped in from probably South America, and so they're not as fresh, plus they're a lot more expensive.
Just so you know, these are from Grand Junction, Michigan.
Right, yeah. And so frozen for fruits and vegetables can actually be just almost as good as fresh as far as the nutritional value. As a matter of fact, with blueberries, those were probably picked when they were ripe and frozen right away, as opposed to the ones that have to be shipped in being picked green and being flown in. Okay, so
you can go to the organic blueberry farm in Granger. I get mine there and get them frozen, keep them all winter long.
Exactly. I bought a 25-pound box last year of frozen organic blueberries, and almost every morning as part of our breakfast. Do you need to come through? So that's okay. Almost every morning at our house, part of our breakfast is a fruit smoothie that either my wife or I, or actually we've trained our 2 older kids to make them now. And usually the base of it is frozen berries because it tastes really good. And you can actually put a whole handful of spinach or kale in the bottom of the mixer and add blueberries and then add like orange juice or pomegranate juice or something like that. And you can't even taste the kale or the spinach. So it's a great way if you have children or even if you have a finicky spouse to get them to get more vegetables in your diet. Okay. Melons are also really good to add to your diet. So when you're looking for fruits, it doesn't have to be the things most Americans think of like apples and oranges. Try to really eat plums, eat melons. Watermelon is very alkalinizing, as well as our cantaloupes and honeydews. So one of the things that many health authorities, especially when we look at cancer, believe is that the more acidic your body is, on a cellular level, that the more favorable it is for cancer growth. Fruits and vegetables are almost always naturally alkalizing to your body. Okay, so some people that are really into natural health will even buy alkaline water. It's water that's been actually the pH has been changing, and I don't think that's a bad idea, but I think that you can do the same thing by, for example, adding some lime juice or some lemon juice to your water. You can alkalinize it that way also. There's a couple of things in this little section that I want to highlight. One of the things I want to highlight is I mentioned that pumpkin seeds are high in zinc. Walnuts are really high in beneficial fats. So when I said every meal you should try to have beneficial fats in it, nuts, especially tree nuts, which are a little different from peanuts, are an excellent thing to purposely put into your diet to give you more beneficial fats. Walnuts also have been shown to be beneficial for men with prostate problems. So walnuts especially are good, but really any tree nut is great. Kind of like I mentioned with the pumpkin seeds, it's best if they're raw, unroasted, and then you're going to get more of the nutritional benefit, just like you get more of the nutritional benefit from other foods that are not cooked. Okay? The other thing I should mention about nuts, though, is that they are a nutritional powerhouse, but they're also high in calories. So a little bit goes a long way. So a serving of these would only just be 3 or 4, halves, not a whole big handful or half of a bag. Okay, so again, a little bit goes a long way with those. A great sweetener can be honey. Now, if you're diabetic, honey does have sugar in it. It's got fructose in it, so you have to be a little cautious about it. But almost always, you're better off to go with something natural as opposed to something processed or something man-made. So honey is a great sweetener in that you also get some nutritional benefit from it. It's not just empty calories. As a matter of fact, honey can be used medicinally. And as a matter of fact, it has been for thousands of years. Honey has been used medicinally. And the interesting thing about honey is that it doesn't go bad. It will dry out, or it will crystallize, but it doesn't spoil. Honey can be used as actually naturally antibacterial and antifungal to use it on your skin. The reason I highlighted this honey, because there's other honey in the store, is that you want to try, if you can, to get unprocessed and, if you can, local honey. This comes from North Liberty, Indiana, so it's not too far away. One of the benefits is that some people believe that because the bees collect the pollen in your local area, that when you eat the honey, it almost acts like an allergy shot because it's exposing you to the pollen that the bees have collected in your area. I've personally had a number of children with allergies where I've had their parents give them a teaspoon of honey every day and have noticed dramatic benefits in reduction in their allergies. There was actually a study also done where they took children that had a cough and they gave half of them codeine, cough syrup. They gave the other half a teaspoon of local honey, and the children that used the honey had a better reduction in their cough and slept better than the kids that used the cough syrup with the drugs in it. So honey has a lot. I would always keep some honey on stock.
Is that better than the raw organic honey?
No, not necessarily. Well, the best thing, again, like the produce, would be raw, organic, local would be the best thing you could do. Okay, so, but local and unprocessed would be good. If you could find one that was organic too, that'd be even better. Okay?
Cook it sometimes? You're saying raw is...
Yeah, it's processed like, if you look at the color of this, and then you look at the kind that's in the little bear that you squeeze, it's much darker, it's much less, it's much thicker this way. Actually, if you find it, most of the time the stuff that's actually been completely unprocessed will be a more solid texture, almost like the texture of coconut oil or like shortening. It'll be that kind of a texture. And that would be the best if you get it completely unprocessed. Okay?
Hey Doc, how can honey be organic when we can't control what the bees are?
Yeah, and that's difficult. And even the whole definition of organic is a little bit skewed in that you can grow like organic corn, but have it next to a field that's conventional corn, and you might get drift spray over into your field. So the idea is that if it says organic, you probably can be assured that it has fewer chemicals, but it's not necessarily a guarantee that it doesn't have any chemicals at all. So with animal products like meats and honey, it's less of a sure thing than with actually buying produce when it says organic. Okay? One of the things I'm going to talk about later when I talk about some foods that you should avoid, actually, things that are genetically modified foods, is that right now there's a battle in our country to try to get the government to force genetically modified producers to actually put on the label that it contains genetically modified foods. Right now they do not have to do that. So one of the value of buying something organic is that if it's GMO, it cannot be labeled as organic. Does that make sense? And we'll talk about that a little bit more when I get to some of the stuff where it's really important to stay away from the GMO version of the food. Okay? All right, so let's head down here. Actually, not very far. I want to talk a little bit about seafood. When you're looking at your protein, your meats, cold water fish is an excellent thing to add into your diet because it's high in protein, and it also is going to have those beneficial fats, especially omega-3 fats, which are some of the hardest to get in your diet. But you have to really be careful with reading labels with fish, because you want to buy wild-caught fish, because much of the fish that you'll see on the market is farm-raised. Farm-raised fish is not going to have the beneficial fats in it that the wild fish does, because they literally keep them in sea pens and feed them artificial food. It also is more likely to have impurities in it, like heavy metals and PCBs, because it's kept more coastally and it's not eating what the salmon eat in their natural habitat. Okay? Also, the species of fish is important. That small fish, one of the problems with fish is impurities, like heavy metals like mercury and PCBs and that in the fish. So think about it this way: the shorter the lifespan of the fish, the less likely it is to have impurities. The higher on the food chain it is, or the longer it lives, the more likely it is to have mercury and impurities in it. So if you had to choose between like shark or swordfish and herring would be much better. It's a smaller fish, lives less time before it's harvested. Same thing with like salmon, only has a 2 to 3 year life cycle, so it's not going to live as long as like large fin tuna or something that's going to live much longer and be more likely to have impurities in it. Okay. So like when I was looking at these fish, the frozen fish here earlier, there is salmon that they have here that specifically says it's wild caught salmon. If you're looking at it and it does not say whether it's wild caught or it's farm raised, you can probably be sure that it's farm raised if it doesn't specifically say that it's wild caught. Okay. How many of you have eaten hummus? Just by a show of hands. Okay, a lot of you. Okay, so I'm kind of preaching to the choir. Well, hummus is made out of chickpeas and usually tahini, which is made from sesame seeds and sesame oil. So it's because it's got beans in it, or chickpeas, it's relatively high in protein, but it has healthy fats in it too from the sesame seeds or from the tahini. So it's a great dip. It's a great thing to put it. I'll sometimes put it on salads, almost as like a salad dressing. So this is also something I would highly, if you're trying to eat healthier, it'd be a great thing to add to your diet to increase the nutritional value, but also add some taste. Okay, and you can make it from scratch and add a lot of variety, like garlic and different spices and things to it. But you can also buy it if you don't have the time to make it yourself. Okay.
How about the sweet potato chips?
Yeah, these would be a better choice than regular potato chips because, again, potato chips have, sweet potatoes have more vitamins in them. But once it's been fried and made into a chip, you probably lost a lot of the nutritional value. Okay, so same thing with like the blue chips. Corn is one of the things that you should have to be very careful with, as far as almost 100% of the corn in the United States is genetically modified or GMO corn. How many of you know what GMO is? Okay, some of you. Okay, genetically modified means, like with corn, most of the corn grown in the United States is called Roundup Ready corn. And what it means is that Monsanto actually has a patent on the corn seeds. And it means that the farmers can plant the corn and they can spray Roundup right on top of the corn and it doesn't kill the corn because it's been genetically modified. There's another variety of corn, I believe it's called BHT corn, that actually they've genetically modified the corn so that it has a chemical in it that actually ruptures the stomach of a common corn burrowing insect that eats the corn. So there's a lot of scientists that believe that it's unhealthy for you because it's not been thoroughly tested. But also because, like for example with Roundup Ready corn, it's much more likely to have a lot more Roundup or herbicides on it because they dramatically spray it. And what's interesting is that much like bacteria can become resistant to antibiotics, a lot of farmers are finding that this Roundup Ready corn, that the weeds are actually becoming a little bit resistant to the Roundup because they're spraying it so much. There's actually some evidence that in some areas of the country that actually the rain falling from the sky, that they can measure that there's a trace amount of Roundup in the rain because there's so much Roundup that's being used in the environment. So corn is one of those things that if it says organic, like we eat corn chips because we like guacamole, so but we almost always buy Garden of Eden or we buy an organic corn chip, okay? I always tell my wife that I'm eating brightly colored because it's blue, but it probably really doesn't make that much difference. But I would try to, corn is one of those things that I would avoid. And the other sneaky way that corn really gets into so many processed chemical-like foods is high fructose corn syrup. It's the sweetener of choice because it's cheap for most processed foods. And so even if you say, well, I don't eat much corn, if you're eating conventional processed, what I would call not real foods, frankenfoods, you're eating a lot of high fructose corn syrup. So one of the issues is the GMO problem with it. The other big issue is that it's a very processed sugar that is one of the most likely things to raise your triglyceride levels, raise your cholesterol levels, because your body takes that excess sugar in your liver and it converts it into cholesterol and into triglycerides. Okay, so if you have a cholesterol problem, don't worry. You actually should be more worried about excess sugar like high fructose corn syrup than you should be worried about saturated fat. I've been focusing mostly on fruits and vegetables, but I want to talk about some grains that would actually be good to get in your diet. One of my favorite grains are oats. If you're gluten intolerant or if you have celiac disease, you should be safe with oats in that they don't naturally contain gluten. You just have to read the labels carefully if you have celiac disease and you can't handle any gluten. If it's been processed in the same manufacturing plant where they process flour, then you might not be able to tolerate it. But anyway, oats are high in protein and they also are loaded with fiber. But this is going to be much healthier for you than like Cheerios, which are processed. As a matter of fact, the reason I picked up this bag is these are called steel cut oats, or sometimes they call them Irish oats, like is over here, or Scottish oats. And basically what it is a whole oat kernel that's just been chopped. So it's not flattened out, and the regular like slow cook rolled oats have actually been steamed and then flattened out. And those aren't too bad for you. But they still they don't have as good of a glycemic index as these. These will keep you full longer, have more protein, and won't cause your blood sugar levels to vary as much as something that's been more processed. So the fast cooking oats or the instant oats have been even further processed. So if you're trying to get the health benefits of oats, the less processed the oat you eat, the better. So this would, in my opinion, be the best. Or actually you can buy something called Oats, which is the whole oat kernel that I think just has the outer shell taken off. It takes a lot longer to cook. I should mention with these that a great technique for these for breakfast, if you're, like we have 4 children at our house, so we're always in a rush in the morning, is that you can bring 4 cups of water to boil the night before, throw a cup of the steel cut oats in the pot, put the lid on and turn it off, and it will steep all night long, and then in the morning it'll be ready to eat. All you have to do is warm it up. Otherwise, these take, like I think it's about 20 minutes to cook, so they take a little bit longer than the oats that most people eat. Okay. Another thing here is millet. If you've never used millet, millet is again high in protein. It does not contain gluten for those people that are gluten intolerant. It's something that most of us think of as feeding to the birds. Okay, a bird seed, but it can actually be a great thing to add to your diet. You can either eat it, like this, to prepare it much like you would prepare like a porridge with it, or you can grind it up. If you've got a coffee grinders work great for grinding this kind of flour. If you want to add it, you could add it to, say, if you were making banana nut bread or making any kind of a bread-like product to up the protein content of it. Right next to it here are flax seeds. And flax seeds are great in many regards in that they contain omega-3 fats. It is a little bit harder for your body to process the omega-3 fats that are found in vegetable or grain sources than they are from animal sources. So it is best to get your omega-3 fats from salmon or fish oil capsules. But there is some benefit to the omega-3 fats that you get from flax. Flax also is really high in fiber, so it helps to fill you up and help to lower your cholesterol and so forth. Because it has omega-3 fats in it, go ahead.
If you grind it, can you utilize all the nutrition in it? If you grind it up real fine?
If you grind it up, you can utilize it better. The reason that the omega-3 fats are better from animal sources is that your liver has to convert it from the kind that it's in plants to what your body actually uses, called EPA DHA, and it takes about 10 times as much of the plant source of it to get the same amount as you get from the animal source of it. Okay, but you're right, grinding it up is the best way to consume it. Now you can buy it ground here, flaxseed meal, but it should be refrigerated if you buy the meal, because omega-3 fats and oils in general tend to degrade or go rancid with time, and so you should refrigerate it. The best way to do it would be to buy the seeds and then grind them and then use them relatively quickly within a day or two after you grind them. Or if you buy the ground flaxseed, like I said, store it in the refrigerator. So I want to spend a long time here, but I just want to talk about juices. You're much better off to always eat the fruit or the vegetable than to consume the juice, because you get all the fiber, you get all the other benefits of eating the whole fruit or vegetable. Especially if you're trying to lose weight, one of the benefits of eating the whole fruit or the whole vegetable is that you're going to get fewer calories. For example, a glass of apple juice might contain the juice of 4 or 5 apples. So again, kind of like we were talking about
Manager to the deli, please. Manager to the deli.
Kind of like when we were talking about broccoli and whole wheat pasta, you get a lot more food when you eat the actual apple, whereas you could easily sit down and drink a couple glasses of apple juice and get a whole bunch of calories, but not get the fiber and the other things with it. So it's going to cause a raise in your blood sugar more quickly and not be as healthy for you. So one of the reasons I mention this is that a lot of parents think that their children really need to have fruits and vegetables, and they think, well, maybe if they're not eating as much fruit as they should, I'll give them fruit juice. But for most kids, the fruit juice contains way too much sugar, especially because of the fact that it doesn't only contain usually the natural sugar, but like I said, most of these juices actually have high fructose corn syrup added to them, which is a really strong type of refined sugar that you want to try to avoid. Okay? Now, the exception to that might be that some of them, like say 100% juice, which is good. If you're making like a fruit smoothie like I talked about, pomegranate juice or acai juice, or even cranberry juice does have some good antioxidants in it. If you're trying to lose weight, you have to be a little bit careful about the extra calories that are associated with it. Okay?
Somebody to say no high fructose corn syrup.
Yes, and that's what you want to look for. If you're going to buy one, you want to look for one that's 100% fruit and one that says no high fructose corn syrup. And also be careful, like for example, if you want pomegranate juice, because pomegranates are really high in antioxidants, a lot of them are mislabeled as it might say pomegranate, but then it says cranberry pomegranate, and if you read the list like this, it has water, cane or beet sugar, grape juice, cranberry juice, and then pomegranate juice is one of the last things on the list of ingredients. And the way list of ingredients work is that it's in the order of what's in there the most. So the first thing on the list of ingredients is the thing that is in here the most. So if it's way down on the list of ingredients, there's probably not a lot of the actual pomegranate juice in there. Okay? All right, let's move on. Yes?
How do you feel about juicing?
Yeah, if you make your own juice, that's a different story, especially if your juice is a lot of vegetables. So I mentioned that one of the problems with drinking juice is you don't get the fiber, but also from a nutritional standpoint, one of the benefits of making your own juice is that your body quickly assimilates the nutrients because it doesn't have to process the fiber. I know that sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but like we juice at home, and we will take like a whole head of, or a whole bunch of kale and juice it, and we only get, maybe 3 ounces of juice. And then we'll add just enough like apples and pineapple and other fruits so that we can drink it. I'm not man enough to just drink kale juice without adding some fruit to it. Okay? So, but my own father-in-law actually went through chemotherapy for lymphoma, and after all of his treatment, he was in remission from his cancer, but his blood cell count did not come back to normal. His white blood cell count was off, and he has a background as a chemical engineer, and so he's very scientific about things. So my wife and I have juiced for a long time, and we kept urging him, why don't you juice, start juicing, and we urged him to get a juicer. Anyway, to make a long story short, he did that, and finally, and he started just doing 1 juice a day. So he wasn't replacing all his food with it, but he was doing it as an addition to his food. And after he did that for, I think it was 3 or 4 months, he went back and they redid his blood work, and his blood work was normal. And that was the only thing he had changed, was adding the juice. So it's a great way, especially if you're ill or you have digestive issues with getting nutrients into your body. Juicing can be a great way to get those nutrients into your body. It also, if you consume it fresh, right when you juice it yourself, it contains those digestive enzymes and so forth that I talked about that you get from eating fresh produce. So, like I said, you should try to get most of your calories from your fruits and vegetables, but if you're going to eat grains, I mentioned steel-cut oats. Brown rice is another pretty decent grain, especially if you mix rice with lentils or with beans. Down here, like black beans or pinto beans, you're going to get a good, inexpensive, and wholesome protein and good carbohydrate. Brown rice, as opposed to white rice, is less processed. So again, it gives you long sustained source of energy instead of causing a rise in your blood sugar. The problem with eating grains or starches that have been processed, or like white potatoes, is that it causes your blood sugar to go up really fast. It gets digested quickly, and then that causes you to have energy for a short while, but then your body corrects it by driving your blood sugar down, and it makes you hungry again right away. It also makes you tired right away after you get off that sugar high, so to speak. And if you do that for a long enough period of time, you can become resistant to insulin, and that can actually lead to diabetes or to type 2 diabetes in the long run. So, especially if you're trying to burn fat, if you're trying to lose weight, if you keep constant sustained energy, you're much more likely to be in a fat burning mode. Insulin is a fat storage mode. So keep trying to avoid starchy, sugary foods is going to help you to be in that fat burning mode as opposed to into the fat storage mode. Most Americans are worried about having too much fat in their diet. One of the things I said is that you want to, when you're looking at your food, you want to try to think about where are the healthy fats. So a great way to get healthy fats in your diet are from good, healthy oils. All right, but you have to really be careful about what you choose. There's essential oils, which are omega-6 and omega-3 oils. I mentioned omega-3 oils that come from things like cold water fish. They also come a little bit from nuts and flax seeds, and that we talked about. So like this that says Omega Plus is a mixture of olive oil, avocado oil, and flax oil. So it actually has omega-6, omega-9, and omega-3s. So this would be actually a great thing to use. And and this would actually be best to use in a way where you're not cooking it. So again, if you're eating lots of those salads and those vegetables that I talked about, a great thing to do is to make your own salad dressing by using oil, and we'll talk in a second about like balsamic vinegar or red wine vinegar, or just adding herbs to it. So this can be a great thing to have in your kitchen or have at hand all the time. I would not recommend you cook with this, or this would not be my first choice, because heat damages it and tends to produce more free radicals. Okay, so this would be great to consume raw or uncooked. A great oil for cooking with, though, is coconut oil. Coconut oil actually has saturated fat in it, but it's a long-chain saturated fat that has been shown to be anti-inflammatory. It can really help people that have digestive problems, and it actually is just a healthy thing to add to your diet. So when you're cooking, coconut oil makes a great oil for cooking with. If you've never used coconut oil, it's solid at room temperature up to, I'm not sure exactly, like 75, 80 degrees. It'll start to turn liquid. Over and above the dietary uses for it, coconut also makes a great moisturizer. You can put it on your skin. If you have eczema or you have dry skin, it's great for that. You can even use it as a natural kind of a hair gel if you want. So there's a lot of reasons to use coconut oil. I actually learned about putting it in your hair and on your skin from a patient of mine who was married to a Samoan, or was from Hawaii, and said that almost all the native Hawaiians use coconut oil on their skin as a moisturizer. So
Will it grow hair?
yeah, sorry, not that I know of. One of the issues that I should mention with many actual lotions that you buy is a lot of them are actually petroleum based. They're actually made from petroleum products, and just like foods we take in through things we take in through our body can increase our toxic load, lotions that go on your skin, or even hair care products, can get absorbed into your body also through your skin, almost as readily as when you take it into your mouth. So that's why I mentioned this can be something you can use on your skin also. Same thing that some people use olive oil on their skin as a moisturizer too. Okay? One last thing about oils is that oils, as I mentioned with the flax seeds, go rancid. So if you've got oil that's been in your cabinet for a long, long time, and it's been, especially if it's been in a hot condition, or if it's been in the sunlight, I would actually say that although almond oil would be a good choice, I would probably actually not buy this particular one because light increases the rancidity of the oil. So it would be good, it would be better to buy something that's in a dark bottle, because one of the things that does is prevents the light from spoiling it, so to speak. Okay, so it's best to store it either in a dark place. If you're going to use it frequently, you can put it in your pantry. But if you're somebody that's not going to use it very frequently, it would last longer in the refrigerator. Any questions about oils? I would avoid corn oil, canola oil, because most of the canola oil and corn oil is GMO, or genetically modified, as we talked about. Same thing with soybean oil. Actually, almost 100% of the soybean products or soy products in the United States, unless it's organic, is probably genetically modified, comes from genetically modified soybeans. Okay?
Does olive oil lose all of its nutrition when you cook it, heat it?
I don't know about all of it, but it'll lose some of it.
Great amount of it?
Yeah, like I said, it denatures it, or it breaks down faster than like a coconut oil or a peanut oil. Doesn't break down as fast.
I cook with it a lot, I probably shouldn't.
Yep. And coconut oil has a really rich flavor also. I have some patients actually that a patient of mine gave me a recipe where they actually take coconut oil and mix it with cocoa powder and make and raw honey and actually make a dessert out of it. So, all right, we're going to go around to the next aisle. How many of you make your own salad dressings? Not very many people. Okay, a couple of you. I really enjoy it, but I'm one of those people that likes to experiment when I'm cooking. But a standby at our house is good balsamic vinegar. It has a very sweet taste, unlike most vinegars, if you think of vinegar as being tart. And just mixing this with some olive oil and putting some garlic or some red pepper flakes in it or something can make a very good salad dressing. I sometimes actually will use it just straight on my salad. It also makes a great marinade for like chicken breast or different things. So this is something that is a staple at our house that I would encourage you to have. It's balsamic vinegar. And actually vinegars in general tend to have some health benefits. Down here is a brand called Bragg's, which this one actually is Bragg's vinaigrette. So one of the things that I noticed with this when I was looking at it earlier is it contains Bragg's organic apple cider vinegar, which there's some health benefits to apple cider vinegar, but also contains organic extra virgin olive oil, and then just purified water, honey, organic garlic. So this doesn't have anything that is bad for you in it. Whereas I spent about 5 minutes before looking over. I couldn't find another single salad dressing that didn't have soybean oil in it, which is probably genetically modified, or didn't have high fructose corn syrup added to it. So if you're buying prepared salad dressings, I would really read the label carefully. Okay.
Have you ever used the rice vinegars?
I haven't, but not that they're necessarily bad for you. I just don't use it. We use mostly red wine vinegar, white vinegar, and balsamic vinegar, depending on what kind of salad dressing we're making. Actually, on our website, there's a great recipe for a garlic parsley dressing that is garlic, Italian parsley, and white vinegar, and you just mix it up together. It's really good, and it keeps the vampires away for days because it's really garlic. We're going to go around the corner. Right, so yeah, somebody mentioned, you might have noticed I skipped the cookie and prepared food. One of the general concepts is that for the most part, if you shop the perimeter of the store, you're going to be buying real foods. If it can be in the middle of the store and it doesn't have to be refrigerated, it's probably been processed and probably is not nearly as healthy for you. Now there's some exceptions to that, but for the most part, you want to get it. If it can go bad, then it's good for you, and if it doesn't go bad, it's probably bad for you. Okay, all right. So the reason I stopped here is that I mentioned walnuts and almonds and tree nuts. Peanuts are actually a legume, so they're not quite as healthy for you from a beneficial health standpoint. But but still, a natural peanut butter is not a bad choice for whether it's to use it in something like to make a dip. My children really enjoy dipping apples in natural peanut butter. They don't sell it here, or I couldn't find it anyway, but even better would be other nut butters, like buying almond butter or cashew butter. Oh, yeah, okay, here we go. So, good eye. So, almond butter or cashew butter or those kinds of things would be even better because they have more of the beneficial fats. I would recommend a natural butter because it doesn't have the extra sugar added to it. Most peanut butters have a lot of sugar added to them. Again, the best thing would be like an organic natural peanut butter because of the pesticides and so forth. So, but there's an order of magnitude that if this would probably be my last choice, and then this would be my next choice, and that would be the best choice. Okay. Stan asked about breakfast cereals. Most breakfast cereals really are not a nutritious start to the day. As a matter of fact, I like when they advertise them, they always use this phrase. If you watch the commercials, they always say part of a nutritious breakfast, because it is only just part of it. So you would be much, much better off to consume something like oatmeal, or better yet, to consume some fruits or vegetables, like some yogurt with some fresh fruit in it or something would be a much better start to the day. And one of the concepts that is a great thing to improve your health is to get more of your calories earlier in the day. Eating late at night is a great way to store fat. Eating earlier in the day is a great way to fuel your body for the day. You actually, I tell people that you should eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. Okay, so that would be ideal. But something like shredded wheat or an unprocessed cereal would be better for you than something like Frosted Flakes. But again, I would say you'd be better still to avoid that completely if you really wanted to be super healthy. One of the things that's interesting is that in many Asian cultures, that they don't have a distinction about only eating certain foods at breakfast. You know, in the United States, we always think about eating eggs or bacon or cereal or whatever for breakfast, but there's no reason you can't have a salad for breakfast if you'd like. Or one of my favorite things actually is to eat eggs, but saute a whole bunch of fresh vegetables and mix them in with my eggs or in an omelet. Anything you can do to add more vegetables, the better.
Is the wheat and bran good for fiber?
Well, yeah, bran can be a good way to add non-soluble fiber, but there's two types of fiber. There's soluble fiber, which is found more in fruits, and then there's non-soluble fiber. Soluble fiber or non-soluble fiber you could get also from chewing on a tree. I mean, it literally is stuff you can't digest. It takes up space in your body, and it helps to helps to slow the rate at which things you eat get turned into sugar. So it can help in that regard. But I would say you'd be much better off if you want to increase your fiber content to eat more vegetables and eat more fruits, because you always want to think about what's the nutritional benefit to what I'm eating. If you eat, for example, kale or broccoli, you're going to get all those cancer-fighting chemicals, you're going to get vitamins, you're going to get minerals. If you try to increase your fiber by eating bran, you're going to get fiber, but you're not going to get nearly as many of the other benefits as you would from eating more vegetables. Now I'm just going to highlight a couple spices, but I would urge you to, again, eating healthy does not have to mean eating bland, just raw fruits and vegetables. Try to really increase your repertoire of recipes, of healthy recipes. And one of the great ways to make healthy food taste better is to use lots of spices. Many spices actually have some health benefits, as I'm going to talk about in a second, but they also just make food taste better. One of the concepts that I forgot to mention earlier, a key thing with eating healthier is just simply to chew your food more for longer. That the first stage of digestion actually happens in your mouth with mastication, of chewing the food up. Your stomach is actually a chemical digestion, but it can't effectively digest food until you've broken it up into smaller pieces. So a good concept is to slow down when you eat. And even from a psychological standpoint, to try to enjoy your food. So one of the things that I read recently, a little kind of a trick, was to try to pick out what are the spices that I taste in the food that I'm eating, as a way of kind of slowing down and actually enjoying the food. From a psychological standpoint, many psychologists believe that one of the reasons we eat or eat the wrong foods is because we're actually eating not because we're hungry or we need food nutritionally, but for emotional reasons that we're eating, because we're under stress or whatever. So slowing down can be a really good tool, and also slowing down also kind of tricks your body into thinking, or not tricks your body, but makes your body feel at ease that food is plentiful. Okay, when you are rushing through what you eat, it sends chemical signals to your body that harken back to times when food was not plentiful and you had to eat quickly and you had to grab food when it was available, because you never knew when there was going to be a famine or a drought or a cold winter where food was not readily available. So slowing down, you might have heard of, there's actually a movement where you can Google it, it's called the slow food movement, and it's all about enjoying not only the eating of food, but the preparing of food also, making it a family event. One of the things that I see in my own family was that my grandmother was a wonderful cook, and she really took pride in what she cooked. As most of us as Americans have gotten busier, we often look for foods that are fast and don't necessarily take the time to really cook and make cooking a family affair. So like I've children, I think one of the things that we can do for our children that's a really positive thing is not only teach them by example with eating healthy foods, but teach them by example to enjoy the preparation and eating of good healthy foods. And so you can model that for your children by teaching them good healthy recipes. Right, so I got off on a tangent, I'm sorry, but I'm going to talk about some spices. Cinnamon is one that I wanted to highlight because cinnamon has some medicinal properties. There's been studies that have shown that adding cinnamon to your diet can drastically or dramatically lower your blood sugar levels. If you're a type 2 diabetic, or you're somebody that has hypoglycemia or has blood sugar issues, or if you just want to avoid those kinds of problems or you want to lose weight, cinnamon can be a great thing to add to your food. It can be a great mix with like the steel-cut oats we talked about earlier. You can actually make cinnamon teas. You can add cinnamon to other things, like you could even add it to coffee, or you could add it to green tea. But cinnamon can be a great thing to add to your diet. The study that I read where they showed dramatic improvement in people that were even insulin-dependent diabetics, they found that a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of cinnamon was most effective. That more than that wasn't more effective, and less than that wasn't enough. Okay, so you have to use a fair amount. You can also buy cinnamon in capsules and actually take it as a supplement if you are somebody that's a type 2 diabetic, or that might be beneficial to do that. Okay. The other spice I want to highlight is turmeric or turmeric. I know I saw it just a minute ago. Oh, here we go. Some people call it curcumin, but turmeric or turmeric is very anti-inflammatory. I don't know if you can see it, but it's kind of a orangish yellow color. It's used in Indian, traditional Indian foods, as far as not American Indian, but East Indian Indian foods. It's usually one of the main ingredients in curry sauces, and it's actually been shown to reduce whole body inflammation. And the common denominator with many chronic diseases is inflammation, whether we're looking at arthritis or we're looking at anything that ends in itis. Okay, so, but one of the interesting things is there was a study that showed that traditional Indian diets that are high in turmeric were protective against dementia, which many people believe that dementia and Alzheimer's is largely an inflammatory brain problem. So adding turmeric to your diet, or you can take it in a capsule form like I know some of you do, can also be used if you have arthritis or you have inflammation. It can be a great thing to add to your diet. It has a kind of a spicy flavor, a little bit different from chili pepper, but that same kind of flavor. So it's great in stews and in chilies and in things like that. Okay. I actually have an Indian patient I take care of that said that her elderly Indian grandmother used to make a turmeric tea every day and drink it. I don't know if I would have the stomach to do that, but you could try that if you like spicy food, or if you like chai tea.
Put it on salads.
Okay, we're going to move over here to the. Right, if you're diabetic, or if you're somebody that wants to lose body fat or wants to reduce sugar in your diet, my number one sugar replacement would be stevia. Stevia it's an herb. It actually comes from a stevia leaf, and it's very, very sweet. And it doesn't have any of the negative effects like you would get from Splenda or NutraSweet or the artificial sweeteners. There's a lot of evidence that those artificial sweeteners are not healthy for you. A lot of people don't know this, but NutraSweet, the first time it went before the FDA to be approved, was actually denied because of concerns about increase cancer development with NutraSweet. It was actually only approved the second time under suspicious circumstances where a number of the people on the FDA board had financial ties to NutraSweet. So I would recommend you avoid artificial sweeteners. I would actually rather have you consume white sugar, which suppresses your immune system and is not good for your blood sugar levels, but I'd rather have you consume regular sugar than artificial sweeteners. But stevia is something you could consume. You'll want to read the directions when you buy it, in that, like this says that 1/8 of a teaspoon is equal to 1 teaspoon of sugar. So if you can bake with it or cook with it, but if you use the same amount of sugar, it's going to taste bitter and it's going to be way too sweet. So you have to use a lot less. Sometimes you will see that they will cut it with different kinds of fiber or other things so that it's more of a closer ratio that you would get with real sugar. Either way is fine. It's just you have to read the label before you use it. We actually have I don't think they sell it here, but we have a liquid version of it at home that's really good for like in teas or coffee or whatever. These little, my wife actually carries these in her purse. They're little stevia tablets. Again, they're pretty strong. She uses like a half of one in a iced tea that she might get someplace. But it's convenient because you can carry it with you. I don't know if they have them here, but you can also buy this particular brand in little packets, much like the pink stuff and the blue stuff. All right.
Is it stevia? I got raw stevia. It didn't taste the same.
I don't know.
There's a thing that says stevia in the raw over there.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll talk about that in that's actually just a different brand. This one, and this is just fine. But this one, Truvia, actually is made from stevia, but it's chemically altered. And actually, I've had some patients that this triggered migraines in them. So, and NutraSweet, by the way, can trigger migraines a lot too. So I'd be careful to actually buy actual stevia. But
Yeah, I bought stevia that said raw, and it's sweet.
I don't know. I'm not.
This recently discovered, because I never heard about that. It seemed to be like a fad.
It's been around for, it's been literally used for thousands of years, but it used to be up until not too long ago that you could only usually find it at health food stores. And I don't know what happened legally with the labeling of it, but it used to be only that you would, even in the grocery store, you would find it not with the other sweeteners, but you'd find it usually in a different section of the store. But recently it's become, like I said, a lot more available. Okay? All right. You can also, I don't think they have it here, but you can also sometimes buy sugar alcohols like xylitol that can, a lot of gums sometimes have xylitol added to them, healthy, or gums that don't have NutraSweet added to them, and that's a non-caloric sugar alcohol, and that's okay if you're trying to avoid sugar. The only downside is that for some people, because it's not digestible by your intestines, it can cause bloating or cause some gas, okay? And stevia doesn't seem to do that with most people. I just want to mention this is where the frozen fruit is. So again, that's not a bad idea for, especially when fruit is out of season. It can be less expensive and almost just as nutritionally valuable to buy it frozen. Again, it's probably, like right here, it's probably not organic, but still you have to look at the worst to the best option. Teas can be a really good thing to add to your diet. Green tea especially is loaded with antioxidants, so it can have some health benefits in and of itself. Also, for many people, they mistake what?
She picked up green tea in the middle of the
many people mistake thirst for hunger. And so one of the valuable things about, I mentioned eating more of your calories earlier in the day, teas can be a great thing to drink in the evening to help to give you that satiety or to give you that sense of satisfaction, especially during the winter time of having something warm. And there also can be some health benefits, especially like I said, to herbal teas, like a chai tea that might have some turmeric in it, or a green tea that has antioxidants. When I mentioned that people mistake thirst for hunger, many of us could do well to drink more water. A good goal should be half of your body weight in ounces of water a day. Your body is roughly like 70 to 80% water. You need water for every cellular biochemical reaction in your body, so it's hard to go wrong with drinking too much water. So again, drinking teas can be a good way to help to get more fluids into your body. On the other side of that, you're going to notice I'm not going to go down the soda pop aisle. You should avoid soda because of the carbonation, but also because of the high fructose corn syrup in it. Okay. If you're somebody that's a soda addict, I would recommend you try to drink more tea or drink more water, or you could try buying like Perrier or carbonated water, so it won't have the negative effects of the sweeteners and the caffeine and everything in it. You could add lime or add lemon to it, which may make it help you to transition into just drinking more water. How many of you would like to know about a protein source that's cheap and healthy for you? Okay. And so eggs are a great source of healthy protein, but you can again get different levels of benefits depending on what you pick. One of my top choices would be an omega-3 egg like this. So this egg actually, what they've done is they've fed the chickens flax seeds that we talked about that have beneficial fats in them. So the eggs are going to contain more of those omega-3 fats, and they're in the animal form like salmon or similar to that, so your body can absorb them better. You do not want to throw away the yolk though. You want to eat the yolk. You want to eat the yolk because the yolk is where most of the beneficial fats are and a lot of the protein. Okay, so if you have high cholesterol problems, I would be much more concerned about eating starchy, sugary foods than eating whole yolks. Unless you're eating a dozen of these a day, eating 2 or 3 eggs a day is not going to cause a problem with your cholesterol. As a matter of fact, the omega-3s have been shown to raise your good cholesterol as well as lower your total cholesterol. And that ratio is extremely important. As a matter of fact, the ratio of your good to bad cholesterol is more important than your total cholesterol. Okay? Eggland's Best also makes organic omega-3 eggs, which that again might be the best option. Sometimes you'll see them labeled as free-range eggs, which means maybe the chickens haven't specifically been fed flax seeds, but because they're out pecking at the ground, eating bugs, eating more of their natural food, the eggs are naturally going to be higher in those beneficial fats. These, they actually, analyze it and say that there's actually 115 milligrams of omega-3s in the eggs. So the free-range eggs may not be able to tell you exactly how much is in there, but that's going to be better for you than grain-fed chickens, where you're not going to get those beneficial fats. I was talking about the broccoli slaw and how it can be something that can be a fast way to eat healthy. Same thing with the steel cut oats, like preparing ahead of time. Eggs can be utilized in many ways as a convenience food. So one of the things that we tend to do is we'll buy an extra 16 or 18 eggs, and when we first get home from the grocery store, we'll hard boil them and then put them in the fridge. So they're cooked and they're ready to go. So they're great to add to a piece of fruit and have it as a snack, or maybe adding it to a salad to make maybe a full meal. So hard boiling them is good. Also on our website, I believe there's a recipe for I think it's called Sarah, who's my oldest daughter, Sarah's favorite quiche, and it's actually a recipe that's a quiche made out of eggs that has vegetables and other things in it, and it's a great thing you can make up ahead of time. We usually make up a big pan of it, and in the morning it can just be cut up, and it can be eaten cold or it can be warmed up. But again, when time is of the essence in the morning, when you're trying to get the kids out to school or you're trying to get off to work, making those things ahead of time can really be a big value. All right, let's move down to the dairy. One of the other things you should purposely try to get in your diet are fermented foods. How many of you know what probiotics are, or normal gut flora? I've heard of that. Okay, so the research is showing that normal gut flora, the normal microbacteria that live in your digestive system, are extremely important for your health, for your immune system, for actually helping your body to break down and assimilate nutrients. As a matter of fact, many Americans don't have good normal gut flora, and one of the things it can lead to is something called leaky gut syndrome, where you don't digest your food as well, and the food you take into your body really isn't as important as what actually gets into your cell. And so a big part of it is being able to chew it, digest it, and assimilate it so your body can actually use it. So anyway, the reason I mention that is that kefir or yogurt, as long as you make sure that it hasn't been pasteurized, which would kill those beneficial bacteria, can be a good thing to add to your diet unless you're lactose intolerant. Okay? If you're lactose intolerant, you can, I don't think they have it here, but you can buy in health food stores kefir or yogurt that's made out of coconut milk. You can also buy it made out of goat's milk or out of lamb's milk for people that don't tolerate cow's milk. Okay? One other thing I should mention about milk is that we've been told by the dairy industry that we have to have so many servings of milk a day, like 3 servings of milk. It is absolutely not true. You can be extremely healthy and consume no dairy, no milk, no dairy products at all. Okay, so as a matter of fact, many cultures, like many Asian cultures, they eat more vegetables than we do, but they consume almost no dairy products, and they have a much lower incidence of hip fractures or of osteoporosis, because the kind of calcium that's found in green leaf vegetables is much more absorbable than the kind of calcium that's found in dairy products. Now, having said that, again, when we look at different levels of the health benefit, the healthiest way to consume milk, in most nutritionists' opinions, would be raw milk, unpasteurized milk. When you pasteurize milk, you actually flash steam it, which kills the bacteria in it, but it also denatures the protein. Much like I talked about the cooking oils, how you have to be careful when you heat them up. When you do that to milk, and many people have a sensitivity to milk, partially because their body doesn't recognize those denatured proteins in it because it's been pasteurized. So my understanding is that in the state of Indiana, that the only way you can legally buy raw milk is if you buy it directly from the farmer, and most farmers, I believe, do a type of a co-op where you actually end up buying a part of the cow. You buy a percentage of the cow, and that way they can sell you unpasteurized milk. Okay, so that would be my first choice. The next choice up would be organic milk, so that at least the organic milk is not going to have the hormones and the chemicals and the antibiotics that are regularly found in almost all the other milks. Okay, and then the last choice would be just regular conventional milk. Okay, and when we're talking about dairy products, I'm going to go over to the yogurts and talk a little bit about yogurt.
I have a question. What about almond milk?
As long as your almond milk or coconut milk would be my two favorite milk alternatives if you're trying to avoid dairy or if you're lactose intolerant. I would recommend that you stay away from soy milk, however, because of what I mentioned before about most of the soy being genetically modified. Even if it's organic soy milk, there's really a division, about a 50-50 division amongst nutritionists as to whether soy is really healthy for you in high quantities. Most nutritionists believe that the best way to consume soy is in small amounts or in a fermented fashion, because there's some chemicals in soybeans that, even if it's organic soybeans, are not very healthy for you. Yogurt can be a healthy addition to your diet, again, because of the probiotics. It also is, if you pick the right kind, can be a good source of protein. Actually, yogurt, if you pick the right kind, is about half carbohydrates, half protein. One of the problems, though, the pitfalls, is that many kinds of yogurts that are flavored yogurts actually have more sugar in them than a candy bar. Most of them, if you read the labels, will have high fructose corn syrup in them, which is going to greatly increase the sugar content or the carbohydrate content. Greek yogurts like Chobani, and I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Oikos, they tend to have a higher protein content. Greek yogurt is a little bit firmer. It's not as watery as regular yogurt, but it tends to have a higher protein content. The best thing would be to buy one that is unflavored. Even if you added honey or real maple syrup or another sweetener like that to it, it would probably have less sugar than if you bought the version that had the high fructose corn syrup in it. Okay? One of the things that I will a lot of times have for breakfast is Greek yogurt, and I'll actually take some whey protein powder and put in it, which ups the protein content a little bit more, a little bit of ground flax, and then eat fresh fruit with it. And that can be a great alternative to cereal or something to get you started for the day. Okay? I mentioned before that avoiding grains is not a bad idea. You can be extremely healthy, like I talked about dairy. You can be extremely healthy and eat no bread, okay? But most Americans try to eat no vegetables or very few vegetables. So I would urge you again to add more good stuff, add more fruits and vegetables. But if you are going to buy bread, you want to read the label, but a really good, almost foolproof way to tell if it's a good bread is how heavy it is. A good whole grain bread is going to feel heavy. If it feels light and fluffy in your hand, it's probably made with enriched processed wheat flour. So the irony is that enriched, actually, it means that they've stripped most of the nutrients out of it and the healthy fats, and they've added a couple nutrients back to it. So you want to, again, the list of ingredients are in the order of what's there the most. So if you want the first thing on the list, or the only thing maybe, to be 100% whole grains like whole wheat or so forth. But because many of us are sensitive to gluten, a lot of people find that diminishing or reducing the amount of wheat in their diet can actually dramatically improve their health and the way they feel and improve their digestion. Because if you're sensitive to gluten, it becomes an inflammatory process, like an allergy in your body, that your body is constantly fighting against, that promotes inflammation. So a good, God bless you, a good test would actually be to just avoid all wheat for 3 or 4 or 5 days and see how you feel. Many, many people find that if they eat more vegetables and less wheat, that they feel better. Okay. Well, let's.
Sprouted bread.
Sprouted bread is generally better. There's more nutritional value in the sprouted bread. You also can buy, again, I would urge you to eat more vegetables, but you can buy breads that don't contain wheat that are made from healthier things. Like you can buy breads that are made from flax, or you can buy breads that are made from chia seeds, or from all kinds of things like that. Buckwheat, for example, does not contain gluten. I have a list here. Quinoa also, and millet I mentioned, can be grain alternatives that don't contain gluten but also have a high nutritional value. Quinoa, if I think we passed it already, but it's a grain that you can cook much like brown rice, and it has a really high protein value. A little thing that is true, but a way that I used to get my sons to eat it, is that from what I understand with the research I've done on quinoa, that when it was natively grown in South America, in the Incan tribes, it was actually reserved only for the warriors because it had a high protein content, and it would make sense. That would help them to build muscle and make them ready for battle. So, but if you want to get a 10-year-old to eat something, if you tell him it's for the warriors, he's going to chow it down. Okay, so let's head back to the side door deli because I've been talking longer than I planned, and then I'll be happy to field questions back there if you want to continue. Okay.